Welcome to More Than a Few Words, a marketing conversation for business owners. This is your host, Lorraine Ball. And I want you to think about a number for just a moment. 31.8 trillion. $31.8 trillion. That's how much the global spend from women, the impact of women on the global economy is. Want a piece of that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. And to have that conversation, I've invited Robyn Newton to join me. Robyn is a voice actor. She is currently based in Florida. What you should know about her, she started her life in the tech world and 12 years ago went down to Florida. She has built this personal brand as a trusted freelance voiceover actor and has learned the power the human voice has in setting a tone for a brand and influencing how people feel about the brand. Robyn, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Lorraine. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm very excited to be here with you.
I am so excited to have this conversation because it is one that I had with people 30 and 40 years ago. And I always thought that by this point, the world would get it. But there are still brands out there that make mistakes over and over again when they don't consider the different buying habits, the interests, and what women want in a purchase process. Where should we start in this conversation?
Well, I think you started beautifully with that $31.8 trillion in global spend. And that's a big number. And that says a lot about what women are out there doing, the shopping experience, and the fact that we are purchasers. We are the shoppers. We are the influencers. We are the buyers. And just another statistic I'd like to share with your audience is that women actually control more than 85% of the purchases just here in the States. It's a huge number. And that is a proven number. That's not, no, there's no bunnies coming out of hats with that number. Um,
No,
so
that I
yeah,
was going to say that is a huge number. And so I'm a business owner and I want to attract women and make them feel comfortable buying my product. But on a regular basis, I know, and you've seen it, businesses screw up. What are common mistakes? What are myths that they have about how women buy?
sure. So I like to tell my clients, you really need to know what women care about. And it's not just the shopping experience. And sure, we care deeply about that. And I think we can all point to a shopping experience that didn't go the way that we had thought it should go. I've had
Mhm.
some of those myself. But women care about kids, obviously, the health and well-being. And let's not leave out mental health. I mean, we see a lot of that. So we anxiety, depression, that whole mind, body, spirit connection. Women care so deeply about. We care about the environment. And there are some brands out there that are doing brilliant work, in that area. We care about animals. We care about inclusion, equality, diversity. We are the nurturers. That's what
Mhm.
women care about. Safety, security, trust, all of that. So when you're thinking about your brand message, you really need to lean into what women care about.
So, understanding that there are things that women care about, how do you lean in authentically? How do you make a connection that makes sense with your brand and doesn't have women rolling their eyes going, seriously?
Very true, very true. So I'll point to a couple. It's interesting because I point to a couple of brands, and I always point to these brands because they're doing this so incredibly well. Subaru has built a brand that exemplifies their ability to pull everybody in, not just women, but they pull everybody in. and they do it because of their love of dogs. They call attention to dogs. Everybody loves dogs. The environment. I mean, the safety of the vehicle. That you put kids in the back seat and you don't have to think about that. I mean, they have wrapped their arms around their brand and have done it so wonderfully that, honestly, I wish I liked SUVs because I'd probably go out and buy a Subaru. And another brand that does it wonderfully, and I don't know if a lot of women know this, being a single woman, I know this. Bumble. Bumble is a dating app that allows women to make the first move in the dating
Mhm.
app scene, so that women feel safe, that they don't feel stalked. It's on they're dating on their terms. These are brands that really get it. Procter and Gamble, Nike, Coca-Cola. Anytime we look at those commercials, you feel hugged.
Mhm.
So to answer your question, um, when you're thinking about your brand message, you want to let people know that your brand cares and is paying attention to women.
Mhm.
Now you can do that in a number of different ways. I mean, it depends. I mean, I bought an HVAC system and a heating and air conditioning system a couple of years back. I bought the system that cleans the air, not just cools and heats the air, but actually cleans the air, because I care about allergens. I care about, what I'm breathing in my home. I have a dog,
Mhm.
so that brand, really, the brand that I bought, really, that message resonated with me.
Mhm.
So, I'm I've got so many brands just rushing into my head, but,
Sure.
letting women know that your brand embraces,
Mhm.
their concerns, is one way to do that.
Absolutely. So you had several points before we started this conversation that you wanted to be sure that you got out. What
Yes.
other advice to businesses do you have as they're trying to present a feminine touch?
Sure, sure. Integrating women's stories into your marketing campaigns and strategies, and you can do that by looking at someone inside your own team. There are women on your team, most teams, that are doing something exceptionally well,
Mhm.
or they're making a difference in their community. They've done something that's worth celebrating. Integrating those stories into your own brand is huge. I mean, women want they want to invest in brands that lift women up.
Awesome. And I think that is something that companies often forget. And it was something when we were doing social media for lots of small businesses that I couldn't hammer home enough that people wanted to see the people behind the brand. And
Absolutely.
they wanted to connect with the human beings. And particularly, I want to see people that I identify with, that I'm like, oh, I would like that person to come into my home and work on my furnace. I wouldn't mind working with that person as my accountant. Absolutely.
Exactly. And I like to tell people, the other thing to think about is, how does your product or service improve women's lives or the lives of their families? So
Yes.
something to think about, right? I mean, what what is it that you're bringing to the table? That return on the investment, because I got to tell you, women are not out there kicking tires. If I walk into an appliance store, it's because I'm buying something.
Hmm.
I mean, and same thing. If I walk onto into a car dealership, I'm not there to kick tires. I'm shopping for a car.
Hmm.
And guess what? If you don't approach me and you don't address me, or you're looking at my spouse and it's me that's buying the car, oh, you just you know,
Yeah. And it's so funny because again, these were stories that we would tell each other 25 and 30 years ago. And the idea that I I just bought my last car 4 years ago. And I ran into this in a dealership 4 years ago. And I was stunned,
yep,
absolutely stunned. I was like, why are we still doing this? And I did not buy from that dealer.
Yeah, I had a similar experience, and I won't name names, but I went down the street and walked into another dealership and bought a brand new BMW. So,
Absolutely.
it does
Well,
happen. It does happen.
it
But
does.
you know, you also have to remember that women, because we are the influencers, because we are the shoppers, we're going to go out and tell people about that experience.
Mhm. Yes,
And that is either going to be a deal breaker or it's going to win you the business every time. I've had
absolutely.
service people come into my home to service something, and the guys will put the little booties on over their shoes, and that's a win for me. Are you kidding? That's, it's so simple. It costs nothing, and the guys come in, they do the work, they leave, and my floors are clean. And I tell people, I'm like, these guys really respected my property.
Absolutely.
This is a
Well,
no brainer.
Robyn, we could talk about this forever, but I am going to put a pin in it here. I really want to thank you for dropping by and for being a part of the show. And if people want to learn more, they just want to follow you, catch up with some of your work, where should they look for you? Where can they connect with you?
Absolutely. And thank you so much. It's always on LinkedIn. I am very active on LinkedIn.
That's
And
where
I
we
would,
connected.
yes, that's where we connected. Yes, I'm very active there. I'm very active on Instagram. So I'm out there, and I would love for people to connect. And I'd be happy to have a conversation with anyone about feminizing their brand.
Fantastic. Well, we will have links in the show notes. Thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
If you've enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to find other resources for your business, look for MTFW wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen to two, they're short. This has been another episode of More Than a Few Words. Thanks for listening.